What is going on, everyone? It is Tyler McKinney back here again. And listen, the FCF, fan controlled football, was exactly what I thought it would be. There, you have it. That's it. A nice 30-second video for you can move on with your life. No, stick around. I'll give you my true thoughts and dive into things with it. It just is what it is. It not really something that I like. It's not really what's for me, but I think it's something out there for fans that are wanting this type of a thing. It's not my cup of tea. Listen, like I said before, it feels very 3-on-3, one-on-one basketball type of stuff to me, and that's not what I want here. I just didn't really, I really didn't buy into the vibe. It wasn't for me. When I do my sports, I'm not saying that this isn't serious, and I don't mean any disrespect to anyone. They had some really good athletes out there, and the athletes made some really big plays. But there's just a lot of flaws in this ball. It is kind of styled like arena football, but it's not really arena football. I mean, it reminds me a little bit of, what was that, the Madden game that, like NFL Street or something like that EA Sports had there for a little bit. Or like NFL Blitz, it just felt just hokey. And that's kind of where I feel like I stand with it. And again, I don't mean to be mean. Like I said, the guys are athletic, a lot of talent out there on the field, but pretty much it's just like backyard ball all the time, and that's not what I want in my sports. I want to be able to see guys at the top of their game, and be able to use all aspects of the game and to do that. And this just kind of boils it down to just a couple of aspects for me, and it was one of those things to where I kind of watched it to see what was going on with it. And, if you guys want me to continue on to give my thoughts and do reviews on the actual games that happen, I can do that. But for the most part, count me checked out with it. It's not for me. This is not the thing for me. Listen, I'm a diehard football fan. I love getting into the nitty-gritty with the football, looking at the stats, reviewing things, checking out plays, and seeing, things that they could change and different things. The fact of it is that this is just backyard football, guys throwing football up in the air and guys making athletic plays over the other dudes. That's what it is, in a nutshell. Now listen, there were good things, there were bad things. There were some things that kind of surprised me. Other things that I'm like, come on guys, you've got to do seriously much, much better than that. Because they just were really... If it weren't for the fact that they were on Twitch, I would be really, really digging them hard, because there are just a few things that they could have brought their production value up a whole another level. But just some of it was almost like guys running things out of their basement. Guys who were wanting to do things that are getting the opportunity to do them, and they're not professionals in those fields, and you can definitely tell that with it when it comes to the things with it. So we're just going to go ahead and start in. I thought that the production value of it was mediocre at best to just laughable at times. I mean, when your main camera angle for the very first play of your game, the guys are cut off by stands, and I literally am seeing stands in the place of players, and I can't see players on the field. That's a big no-no, guys. That's terrible. And the other thing is that when you switch to you've got this drone that's going around the field, which is totally cool, fine. I'm okay with that. But trust me, you can spend a little bit more money on your drone to get a better quality view out of your drone, so that when you switch to your drone, I'm not seeing some coloristic, like green-hued overlay of everything over it, because you could definitely tell when they changed the camera angles with it, because it was just terrible. Every time they went to that drone, it had this, like I said, it had this green tinge over everything. It looked bad. Now I will say, that aside, they didn't have any glitches with their video. They had these camera things where you go in these like a confessional booth, and the guys can go, and they can talk in there, and they're encouraging all that stuff, which is totally fine with me. I'm not against it. I love the XFL for the access that we got with it and that. So all of that was fine with me. The issue that I had with is just the production value of it, and really overall the professionalism around everything. The announcing, the guys that were announcing were okay, but it's like it was way over the top. It was way too much for me. I always felt taken out of it by them, and I felt like this was all like it was all inside joke, and it was like I felt like it was back in high school. But I wasn't in the in crowd. It was like all these other guys are the in crowd and they know what's going on, and like I don't. Like I get to just observe them from, the nerd table, and they're all over at the cool table, and that's kind of how I felt about everything, because even the name, the Wild Aces, they had to explain it to us, and it took them forever to explain it, and that it's just some inside joke thing that happened, and I'm like, it's ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to take that seriously when you've got some guy's head as your logo. I mean, they did the best they could to make it look presentable and good. And listen, they won the very first game. You're like, what in the heck is that? And it even goes to show you, even with the rules, they don't even know what's going on. So as I'm looking at it, perfect example is the end of the game. So, I guess it was like an intentional grounding thing with the quarterbacks. It was a loss of down. Well, they had this power-up thing where they could have a 5th down. Well, they weren't able to use it because supposedly they lost the 4th down. So there was a penalty on the 4th down, and since they did that, they lost that. And so they were marching down the field. They were only down by 8, so they could have tied the game, but since they had that penalty, they couldn't use their power up. And so it was just, like I said, and then they were fighting. The announcers are fighting with one another over the thing. I was like, what in the world is going on here? The other thing is just way too much time in between plays. This is supposed to be fast-hitting, fast-paced, which I will say that, there was a lot of that happening, but in short spurts. I literally sat there and I counted it. You're averaging anywhere between 50 seconds to over a minute. Yes, you're right. Over a minute of clock time between play calls. Now, I get it. They're allowing fans to make their choices in doing that. And I will say I have not heard any issues with that system. Whereas, everything that they had with the AAF, trying to get all of their stuff set up and that it was just a disaster. So hats off to them for being able to figure all their play calling stuff out and that with it. But it's still taking way too long. I mean, if you think about this, the first half, I counted on my hand how many possessions total. I'm not talking about for one team. Total, there were 5 possessions, possibly 6, but 5 possessions in the first half of the first game. 5 total possessions. That's it. I mean, so when you're looking at it, there was not a lot of things happening. And with the running clock thing, I like the running clock. I like that. But you got to get things moving faster. And I know that they're trying to get the fans involved. And it seems to be working. They're definitely making money. They're bringing in money. They brought in some big hitters with, sponsors. So, I mean, they got like Wendy's, Progressive. I mean, there were some others in that with it. Like I said, I didn't really pay a whole heck of a lot of attention. I mean, thankfully, I was doing other things and had it up because there was so much downtime that it was kind of ridiculous. I mean, there was more downtime in this than there is in a real football game. Now, I will say every play kind of was exciting. And listen, like I said, it goes back to their gameplay. Their whole thing is it's all athleticism, so it's almost like you need a running quarterback. You have to be able to do that with the guys. You have to be able to run. And, it's all one-on-ones on the side. It's all jump balls, And so plays are pretty easy to call and to do because, it's pretty much guys are going to kind of run the play until it breaks down. And then it's, like I said, it's all back roads, it's all backyard football, launch it up, a guy running, hitting the spin move and things like that. And it was kind of neat to see Johnny, speaking of that, Johnny Football get back out there. And I will say, my hat is off to him for that. He came out there, he was very humble about things, had a very good, positive attitude, and the league really needed that. And it showed that the guys were having fun and the guys were doing that. So that's a big thing, And it does seem like they seem to be bringing in some money. People are going through and buying into this whole thing. How much it'll work and how long it'll be staying is another thing with me. But when it comes down to it, I don't really know why there's coaches. I really don't, because the fans are calling the plays. So, the only thing the coach would be there for is to help guys with technique, to work on things and that. And I will say, it is a good opportunity for guys to showcase their talent one-on-one against other people. Being able to show their athletic ability, what they can do and that. However, it does not do anything for the knowledge of the game. And that is a huge factor, especially when you get to where you have guys who are lining up from each other, and the difference is that their knowledge of the game. Because, you get to a point where, listen, you got guys who are more athletic than you. That's just what happens. That's real life. Or you line up where the only advantage that you have is your knowledge of how things work. And being able, to run your routes and that with it. And that's not this game. That's more what I like to see. That's how I like to get into things. That's how I like to do it. But I know that that's not this thing. And that's totally fine. The second game was the Beast versus the Zappers. The Beast won 48-44. And that game was a lot more fast-paced. But it had to do with they had much more mobile quarterbacks. And, the quarterbacks just decided to take off. And they were able... The first downs almost seemed like they were too easy to get. And maybe that's what they're going for. I feel like, it should have been more like 15 yards you need to get as opposed to 10 yards. They kind of went with their traditional football thing. But I think the idea is that they don't want to figure out how to add a kicking game in here. They don't want the kicking game in there. And so to always give it to make it an easy thing for them to get the first down and 4 downs, or make them go for 4 downs and things like that. I get it. But you could just definitely tell that this thing was put together cheaply, easily, and they went out and got some big names, got some big sponsors to be a part of it, to do the things with it. The 2-point conversion, listen, if you want to ask me, I thought it was ridiculous. Once the players figured out that they could run a slant across, and as long as they were faster than the defenders, that they were okay with it. Again, it's all based upon, players' athletic ability, not necessarily skill. We had a couple of the guys who made some really good catches, some, back of the end zone fades and things of that nature. But really, for me, it's like if football were basketball, this is what it would be. And so, I don't know, kind of what else to really say with it. The downtimes were really boring. Let's go into the commentating. Commentating was terrible. I think it was Richard Sherman, and I thought he was okay. It was fine. You had the two guys, and I don't even remember their names. I think that they were owners of teams. And then you had Marshawn, Lynch, and don't get me wrong, but having him, it was just not good. And you could definitely tell the pecking order of things, because they just let him talk, and he just went off on crazy tangents with all of this stuff, and I'm not a fan of cursing, period, but I think that you can use better words, for things. I'm okay if it pops up here and there, a guy uses a word here and there. That doesn't necessarily throw me. But when you're not making complete sentences without them, I have issues with it. When he was on there and that with it, it just wasn't good. And then, Sherman's on there, he's explaining what's going on the field and and I thought he was doing an okay job. As a guest, come in, that's fine. Like I said, the guys who are normally doing it, I guess the one guy was commissioner. have no clue. I don't know. But, you know, it just felt like they were way over the top. Sherman came in and talked, and then they had the guy down on the field, and he was just, he was too much for me down on the field with just his, you know, intensity with being in this thing. And he's like asking Sherman things Sherman already kind of answered before. And so Sherman's kind of like, okay, I'm going to say the same thing I said before. And so there's, production-wise, there's a lot of things that really, really need cleaned up. And that with it, their game, their rules, they really need to solidify their game, their rules. If they really want to make this thing into something that is a lot more presentable to a larger mass. Now, granted, I will say, for you to have, I think they ended up having somewhere around 25,000 people watching on Twitch, which I think is great. I don't know, overall, maybe they had, you know, over 100,000 people on Twitch show up. I don't know that number, but I do know that they were around 125,000 people watching on Twitch. I think that, you know, that's good for them. You know, their money raising has way over exceeded what they wanted it to. They've got some big names in there, and some guys it was good to see on the field again show their ability. You know, Quinton Flowers. We talked about Manziel. There's some other guys. You know, Marchie came in, played well, and other guys too. I don't remember everybody's name, but like I said, a lot of talented guys. I do not want to take anything away from them. I just, man, just not the product for me. And if you're projecting it out to be this fast-paced football, it really wasn't. I'm not all into the fan experience. I want the coaches to actually be coaching. I want the players actually to be playing, and I want to be the guy, you know, watching it for what it is and giving me the best product, as opposed to the, you know, the fans choosing everything and it all being on the athletic ability of, you know, of the player. Because it's, like I said, there's no strategy in it. Granted, they can call plays, and I get it, they're plays and things like that, but it's really not. Pretty much the guys go, they run a route, and if they don't do it, they just, you know, they just play scramble ball. And that seems to be what a lot of the quarterbacks were doing. They were playing scramble ball, and that's kind of what it was. And so, yeah. So that's kind of my thoughts. Like I said, all jumbled up and things like that, but you kind of get my gist. Kind of not for me. But the question, like always, is what did you think? Let me know down in the comment section. I'd love to continue the conversation there and see what you guys thought. If you guys thought it was great, you thought it was awesome, and that I'm just an idiot for thinking the way that I think, which could quite possibly be correct. But those are my thoughts. All right, guys. Anyways, I know that you guys are busy, so let's get on out of here. How about let's try that again? Man, I'll tell you, I'm a little rusty, so give me a little bit here with it. All right? So let's get on here because I know that you're busy. I know that I'm busy. Have a good night. Bye.